like all of us, we have I have a number of hats in scouting, but I have a paid role in scouting which looks after growth and a strategic growth within the organisation. And growing our Joey mobs obviously sits well in that area. Looking at the list of participants, there's a number of people on there. I think Natasha and Shannon and Bob Taylor, who can teach me quite a bit about Joeys themselves. But a lot of experience out there. But to flow on from Leader Build, we've got a program called Mob Build. And just some facts about, basic facts about Joeys. Our top 30 groups, and they're groups that have numbers from 90 to 230 members. All of them have Joey Scout mobs, and that's no surprise because Joey Scouts is obviously a very important section to have. If we go back into our previous year of growth, our 15th year of growth in a row, it was Joeys that really got us across the line. They had about 745 new members, and they were the group, the section that really held it together for us when we last did our census. What I've done here is I've gone through the 9 regions, and what I've done is I've picked in each of the regions the groups that are well placed to have Joey Scouts, but presently don't have them. And by well placed, they have a good section of Cubs, Scouts, Venturers, but at this particular point in time, don't have Joey Scouts. And I would call these the low-hanging fruit, and are well placed. These groups are well placed. So in Bays, there's 14 groups, and you can see them on the screen there. Geelong has 9 groups. Once again, see them on the screen. Gippsland has 5. Lerderderg has 3. And as you can see, when you've got 20 Cub Scouts, 25 Cub Scouts, you're really well placed to have a Joey mob because it shows you're, a well-organised group and doing things well. Loddon Mallee has 4 groups that I can see there that are well placed. Melbourne region has 13 groups. Now, if you actually did this probably about 3 years ago, Boroondara would be sitting there as one of the, would have a high number of these groups, but Boroondara don't have any groups at present because they've put a lot of resource and effort into growing their Joey Scout mobs throughout the groups, and they're not represented there at all at this stage. Mount Dandenong has 15 groups. Northern region has 4, and Plenty Valley has 7. Now, these are all groups that are well placed to be able to set up Joey mobs straight away. Now, if you're looking at going into Joey mobs and you want to do some work in that area, promotion is probably your starting point. And if you're going to promote Joey Scouts, you've got to look at different ways on which you're going to do it. The auction board artwork. Auction boards are generally, if you could approach a local real estate agent, they're prepared for a bit of cross promotion to put up an auction board for you. So you can do that. There's fact sheets and flyers that you can get done. Promotional posters, they're available as well. School newsletter. Now, schools are a valuable part, especially when you think that Joeys are generally, they're 5 to 7. And the nicest way to say it is the leaders and the parents or potential leaders haven't quite worked out the fact that everyone's going to ask them to be on every committee and all the rest. So you've got a good chance of getting them into the group as potential leaders or even as adult helpers to help you out. Social media, very important. Basically, every potential parent that you have of either a Scout, a Cub, or a Joey has been brought up with iPhones. And so they get a lot of their information via social media. So it's definitely worthwhile looking along those lines. Bring a friend invites. If you do a bring a friend invite, say in the Scout section, you might get 1 or 2. Do a bring a friend invite in Cubs or Joey's, you will double your numbers, and you're going to be well placed that night to be able to sort of have invites ready and be able to sign people up. Now, all this information is available from Scouts Victoria, and I'll show you some details later on where you can potentially get that information from. Another way to get potential Joey Scout members is by leveraging current members. So think about who you can use within the group. If there are older Cubs Scouts and parents, ask them to help share the flyer with family, friends and neighbours. So use them contacts, and they can talk about the group and what's going on and how to help out, things like that. Ask them to go to their schools and help distribute material. Potentially they're on committees at the schools and they'll help you promote within the school itself. And that gets you an in rather than you having to go cold to the school. Another one is if you've got someone who lives on a busy road, ask them if they'll put up an auction board sign for 6 to 8 weeks in their front. And auction boards are generally a very good way of promoting and getting new members into the groups. Websites are very important for you. And if you've got a good website that's up to date, it's informative, tells people about the fun things that they've been doing. Obviously, in this year, we've got a Kangaroo coming up. So they're an excellent way to start building the momentum for Kangaroo. And major events are a really good way of both attracting and retaining your youth members. So it's a good way to do it from there. So push that, push the different things that you're doing on a weekly basis, so people have a good idea about what's going on in your group, the fun activities that they're doing. And but the main thing is to keep them informative and most of all up to date. There's nothing worse than looking at a website that's got last year or the previous year's activities on it. It's useful and it shows that you're an active group, but it shows you're also not looking at your website. If you need help with your website, our marketing department will give you a great amount of help here. They have what they call a fact sheet, a digital guide to scouting, communication for online options and practices. They can help you design websites if you need help, and just generally help you keep up to date in this world, especially if that's not your area of expertise. Bit of a checklist for where we've gone so far. You really want to make sure the mob meeting times and contact details on the group hall sign is up to date. That's where you'll do a lot of advertising, people walking past, they'll see Joey's. If you've got a contact there, make sure it's up to date and they're going to get the information when they put in inquiry. Make sure you've got a procedure to help you respond to public inquiries. Scouts are very good at getting inquiries, not so good at answering them at times. And at any given point in time, there's numerous inquiries that are just left unanswered. That means people basically don't come back for a second bite. They've tried, we're not interested, so they go away. Make sure promotional and recruitment programs are part of your calendar. Make sure that you give plenty of opportunity for family camps, get-togethers, where people can come along, try Scouts and see whether or not they want to stay. Make sure you've got good procedures in place to answer any questions and inquiries that come your way. I've already mentioned about the Scouts Victoria digital guide to help you do your website. Equally, you can ring up our marketing department and they'll give you guidance.
There's one set of the twins. Okay, that's another set of twins. That'll be 4 sets of twins, but at least one set is girl and boy.
Oh, good. Some girls. Yeah.
Oh, no, I've got
Okay, hang on, I'll just see if that's talking. Okay, the group has a sufficient supply of group scarves and membership badges. So when you're ready to invest new members, you just want to make sure that all of them are ready to go and you can invest them quickly. Once you get them into uniform, they're more likely to stay. And are you setting your recruitment targets on a regular basis? So just make sure it's part of your overall planning, because Joeys, if you can grow Joeys, Joeys become Cubs and Cubs become Scouts, as we know. The question on everyone's lips always is finding new leaders. How can we recruit new leaders? Leader Build, if you haven't heard about Leader Build is a project put together whereby you can run an actual night where you invite parents, invite people off the street, might be adult helpers along who you want to move over. And there's the key to Leader Build is to ensure that you've got some upfront, vibrant people who can run it for you. Equally, you want to make sure you run it in its entirety and the way that it is planned. A lot of people will make the mistake of just sort of picking the eyes out of Leader Build, not running it correctly. And the answer will generally be, look, we didn't get very many people. So it's a bit of a problem. So if you run Leader Build and you run Leader Build properly, you really can get good growth in potential adult helpers and leaders coming your way. Other way to find new leaders is to go to current venturers and Scouts and Rovers. Generally, if you look down your current list, a lot of venturers, even Scouts, will be looking to do service and may respond favourably to an invitation to become a Joey Scout leader. So you can get them to come along and help. They may not be necessarily the primary leader, especially in the case of the venturer and a Scout, but when you've got a ratio of 1 to 6, it gives you other people who can help you support, run fun programs and do it from there. Work your way through the group's records. Best way, one by one, contact each venturer or rover if you need to, and ask them, because quite often people are waiting to be asked. So you can work your way through and see from there. Another way to find new leaders, past youth members. These might be people who have disappeared for the last 2 or 3 years. They might have drifted away even longer. And you might find that, you know, Scouts are now young parents and might be looking to get back into it. So if you've got decent records, review send them a letter, invite them if you're going to run a Leader Build session. And, you know, for every 10, you might get 1, you might get none, you might get 3. So it's worthwhile working through and seeing how that goes. Finding new leaders, another way to do it is if you're ready to go with Joeys and you've got 3, 4, 5 ready to go, but you don't have any trained leaders, look at running a roster of leaders within your group to see whether or not they can help out whilst you're in the process of training and sourcing new leaders. It's only an interim measure. It's not something that you want to be able to do long term, but it gives you an ability to start Joeys, get a bit of momentum, and you can then start targeting parents as to the ones which are most likely to step up and become leaders, and see how you go from that side. Once you've got a roster in place, you can get the mob operating. Equally, you can start talking to perhaps district leaders to see if you can get some support. Also start running some joint nights with other leaders. So attend the district training meetings, work out where other leaders who will be more than welcome to come and help you, run some joint nights, run some joint camps, and take some pressure off. And that will help gain momentum for you as well. So a second checklist, if you haven't got a Leader Build session planned, talk to the people at Scouts Victoria and set some future dates as to when you're going to run one. Work through your current scouts, venturers and rovers, as well as past youth members to see where you can go. Make sure all group families have been invited to the leader build session, and do a group roster to see whether or not you can help working through the leader in charge as well. Now, all this information I've got has come off the mob build section of the Scouts Victoria website. So if you go into the Scouts Victoria website, there's a section, just put in the search bar, mob build, and you'll go through. There is a manual, and the manual is very useful. It's pretty much all the information that I've given you, but in more detail. So it'll take you through, give you a lot of ideas on how and ways you can run things. Other things that are on the website as well. You've got how to do flyers. You've got editable documents. You've got PDFs that you can use. You've got come and try Joey Scouts flyers, which you can change. If you need help in editing these things further, once again, our Scouts Victoria marketing team will help you from that side. School newsletter, a prime area to get new people to come along. There's information, so contact the school, find out what sort of information they want, but here, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel, information on how to do Scout newsletters, school newsletters, and work it through from there. You've also got Bring a Friend Night, instructions on how to do it. Once again, there's invitations there. Bring a Friend Night's very valuable times and ways of getting new youth into it. Youth will try things very easily and very readily. So they'll try and sort of, so Bring a Friend Night, encourage them along to get along there. Social media, lots of information here about social media, posts, graphics, pictures that you can use. All these pictures have been through the marketing department, so they're okay to use on your various social media streams. You've also got posters, and these are very valuable to put up around the hall, to put on auction boards and things along those lines. So you can do those as well. Auction boards, as I said, a very valuable way. If you can get a number of those out in the street and in prime areas, you can work your way along from that side as well. So definitely good bits of information there. Sort of throw it open. We've got a couple of people here who might be able to help us a bit more on how they've successfully. I know Natasha, putting her on the spot, I know she's been very successful at growing Joey's in her area. So have you got some tips, Natasha, for us on how you've been able to grow Joey's in your district?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that people forget, and you said it, Michael, you know, ask people. People don't volunteer. People like to be asked. And especially at the cutesy age of Joey Scouts, you know, people want to get involved. They want to do everything, be everything. So yeah, asking is where I've had the most success. Leader build, I love leader build. Leader build's fabulous. Again, but it's a matter of showing people how much fun we're having, what adventures they can have, what they can do, and ask them for help. My only comment with newsletters, especially with schools, is that I'm very often disappointed that schools ask for a contribution towards putting our material into school newsletters. Please make the most of your parents that go to those schools, because they can very often get rid of the charges that are involved with it. But yeah, an excellent healthy unit of 20 odd kids is just the best thing in the world. And if you haven't been to one, invite yourself along. Yeah.
Thanks, Natasha. Shannon, have you got any tips? Because you're obviously a district Joey leader.
Yeah, I would say one of the really important things is when you do start getting kids showing up to you know, deliver on what scouting says it's going to be. You don't want to spend every night in the hall playing Tiggy and kicking a ball around. I mean, it's good to do those things, especially get the kids to pick games, and they'll pick types of Tiggy, and it teaches them, you know, it gets them familiar with each other. But thinking back to the start of last year, start of 2021, my district basically doubled our number of Joey Scouts in just a few months coming out of lockdown. We took 77 kids on a district camp the end of term 1 last year. And I think, you know, we delivered really strongly on, you know, adventurous activities and being outdoors and getting to do the things that they wouldn't do otherwise. We certainly were so much more than a babysitting service or just an after school club. So I think that's a big part of why we've retained those numbers. We're still hovering around the same sort of numbers we were, you know, 8-10 months ago, even through the last lot of lockdowns. You know, kids are still coming straight back as soon as they can. So yeah, I mean they're young, so a lot of them might have just started school if they're 5-6 years old, but don't underestimate what they'll be capable of and what challenges they're willing to take on, because they'll get out and do things as long as they're supported and not pushed hard. They'll get out and do all kinds of adventurous things. So that's sort of what I would add there.
Thanks for that, Shannon. One of the things we're talking to parks at the moment about, and this is very, very early days, but we're sort of talking about a project where we can have park rangers help us with young youth who are Joey age to do some projects within the local parks and see if we can grow that to get some organic growth coming through in varying areas. And that can suit both inner city and outer as well. One of the things which we always have to keep in mind with Joey's, it can sometimes be harder to run a Joey mob in the country than it can in the city. So it is worthwhile if you're looking to start off somewhere, is to perhaps piggytail on the back of a cub night as well. So you can sort of spread your resources or utilize your resources just that little bit better along those lines. One of the other targets for leaders or new leaders can be grandparents. So Bob, how did you get involved?
Yes, that was that was to support my granddaughter when she turned 5.5 and started Joey's at Upper Beak. So we're one of the ones that disappeared because of the COVID situation. But my the grandson now, he's just turned 5, starts school Monday, so he's in prep. So I hope to perhaps support him, but it might not be up here, perhaps down in Beaconsfield where they live. So I'm impressed with all the stuff you've put together, Michael. It's terrific what you've done there. I haven't seen all this, and that's wonderful, wonderful.
We did probably about 3 years ago quite a bit of work on Joey's, and we sort of found that a number, exactly as I pointed out in those region figures, there were really what I'd call low-hanging fruit sitting there, groups that were exceptionally well placed to put on a Joey mob, but they had good sized cub and scout packs, and they just hadn't put the Joeys on. And Joeys can add, as Natasha pointed out, 20 members very easily to your group. And there used to be a bit of a fallacy that if they started in Joeys, they never went much past cubs. But the number of rovers who are started off as Joeys are proof positive of the fact that Joeys do stay. Yeah. And if, as Natasha pointed out, if they're a positive, exciting, invigorating program that's just not all craft,
correct.
They will stay. And you've got to really look at what the program is. Notoriously, they will. People talk about just craft only, but there's so many options. Joeys are now going to kangaroo and camping, and that was unheard of probably 6 years ago.
Correct.
And so those sort of things are coming in place. So if you've got ideas and you want to challenge them, you can challenge them further. Chris, how have Joeys worked in your district, please?
Hi, Michael. Now, firstly, I missed the earlier bit because I'm in multiple sessions at once. In our district, we were really strategically worked on opening a mob in every group. This is before COVID. And I think it was mentioned just before, the low-hanging fruit were definitely the groups we went into first. I know we used the mob start resources. Like in the stronger groups, we found that there were, in one group, we could half fill a reasonable sized Joey mob with just siblings of existing members. So really put a call out for that. I actually used kind of a version of Leader Build to recruit initial parents with some that have then to support our leader team and the other leaders sections. So the leaders in other sections really supported what we wanted to do and came along and helped, and really just built a lot of energy into the Joey mob. And then once we had one success, we were able to replicate that. We had a couple of groups that were less keen initially to open Joey mobs, but once they saw the benefits flowing through, we were able to get to the point where every group had a Joey mob, and now we've been much better able to weather the difficulties of COVID, I think, by doing that.
Well, and I might go to Frank Moore, because Frank's got a number of hats. He used to be a DC. He's now a region commissioner, and he also is involved at a group level. And one of Frank's group districts is Casey, that has an exceptionally high proportion of Joey mobs in the district. So, Frank, how do you think Casey are so successful, and perhaps other districts may not be quite so successful?
Two things. One is people. People are the most important, that you have the right people in the role. In Casey, they have this amazing district Joey Scout leader whose enthusiasm rings out to everybody else. And as Shannon said, I think it was Shannon said earlier about making the program exciting, that it's not just arts and craft.
Correct.
I know that Bob couldn't do arts and crafts unless it was only Melbourne Football Club, but the activities, they can do nearly everything, or they can do anything. It just might change slightly for their age group, and that's what you see in Casey. It's a drive all the way through. Then I look at other districts, and it always comes down to the people. There's some that say they want to do it, but they haven't got the motivation really, and they don't know how to move people out of the way. And I'm learning that myself in the group that I'm acting as group leader at, where we have leaders that don't believe in Joeys. And I've had to work out how to manage that to be able to get Joey started, because they add so much to the program. And in another region and district, for me at First Bentley, they're proof in the pudding. Their growth in Joeys is gigantic, and it grew and started during COVID. So if you've got the right people, the right program, anything can happen. But it comes back to the old scouting challenge, is the wrong people and people that don't believe. Even our guest speaker today talked about the dream, and get people out of the way that's in the way of your dream. That's a lot harder in scouting, but in some ways that's what we're going to do. So I'm not sure how much that adds to it. That's my experience looking at across all the districts. The knowledge that Michael's saying, that we know where you have Joeys, you have growth through all the sections. It's such an obvious thing, but people don't seem to be able to support that. And it's not an age thing, it's a people thing, that they just can't see the dream and can't see what 5 to 8 year olds can do. They're amazing people, the same as 18 to 26 year olds are, and all of them make a difference to scouting. So that's a little bit of my soapbox that's come along, I know. But yeah, that's the difference between Casey, First Bentley, and the others that just don't seem to be able to get it across. They don't keep driving. They use the excuses of not being able to find leaders or people there. You know, and they do things to fail. The group that I'm group leader, they just sent out a mail and said, we want to start a Joey mob, and then said, oh, it hasn't worked because nobody's put their hand up. Nobody's going to start it. And I let that die and then went and started it differently. And I've now got a Joey leader in training. We've got a rover and 2 venturers that are deciding if they want to be Joey Scout leaders. It's just giving them a place where to start, get them trained, and they'll start a Joey mob. But it's all this information that you've got here, Michael, is the second part that we need. The administration and support is what the people starting groups need, and knowing that they can go to people for help and that there's experts that have done it, because we keep trying to start things without the experts, and you know, I'll fail unless I start using people around me that know how to start a Joey mob.
Thank you very much, Frank. I'm sort of throw it open now to questions from anyone. If anyone's got any questions, please. No, that's easy. Well, as I said, all this information that was presented today, all available on the Scouts Victoria website. Just put in mob space build and all the information will come up. There are lots of people around who have successfully done this. And as I said, we've got districts out there that have got virtually, if not every group in the district with a viable, functioning Joey mob. And they're the ones who are really kicking goals. And, you know, the barriers of entry to getting a Joey mob are quite low, in the sense that there's a lot of enthusiasm at that age. There's also a lot of enthusiasm from the adults, their parents who come along, who are ready to put their hand up to help. And you've also got, you know, it's an hour a night. You're asking people to give up an hour.
Correct.
Yep. Well, we lie about that, but you can say that to people. But it's an hour to start off with. So hopefully that's not a high barrier of entry. So if there are no more questions, thank anyone. If you've got any queries, please, happy to put them my way, michael.thomas@scoutsvictoria.com.au, or contact our marketing department. Or if you've got, you know, district Joey leaders or other Joey leaders in your district, ask them as well. They'll be great support to you as well. Thank you to everyone.